Everybody. This is a brief and friendly conversation with my dear friend Marléne, who's going to introduce herself in just a minute. And we thought we would get together and just have a little chat about Christmas. We've been talking about doing these little live sessions together for so long now. And we thought, well, now was the time to start. So for anybody that doesn't know me, my name is Pascale. I'm a therapeutic relationship and confidence coach. And Marléne, over to you.
Hi, I'm Marléne, and I'm a therapist and a coach and self-help author. And I also help people with confidence and relationships specifically. So yeah, we've been saying we're going to do this for absolutely ages, and we keep saying we must do it, we must do it. So really excited to get started on it, Pascale.
Absolutely. And here's to the first of many, I hope. So we're thinking today about Christmas. Obviously, this is the week of Christmas, and we know that Christmas is a time of great joy and great celebration, but also a time of real difficulty for some people and for some families. We know that from our clients, and we hear it all around us. So yeah, we thought it would be just a good opportunity to kind of chat some of that through, really, just in a really relaxed kind of casual conversation around, our thoughts around Christmas. And maybe we can sneak in some tips, Marléne, what we can do to give people a couple of bit of tips and advice around how to survive Christmas if it is challenging for you.
I think it's quite sad to hear you say how to survive Christmas, but unfortunately, so many people think of Christmas like that now. And if we can find a way to make it a more positive experience, that would be a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is sad, but I think it is wonderful at the same time. But I think what I know from my own experiences, my own personal experience, talking to my friends, talking to my clients, and this is a conversation that comes up over and over and over again, year on year. And I think we talked about it briefly a couple of weeks ago. Something that I'm really fascinated by is there's the financial stress of Christmas, which I totally understand. That puts a pressure, an unnecessary pressure, I think, on so many people. But I'm always really fascinated by the roles that we play within our family, and how, and I kind of like to refer to it as like Christmas dinner syndrome, right? Where everybody gathers again round the dinner table at Christmas. And it doesn't matter, like I've got so many friends and clients who are so well educated or like doing really well in their jobs, and I've got one that's a clinical psychologist, and we talk about how the family dynamics just kind of revert to your childhood family at Christmas, and just what that kind of throws up, really, and just how that plays up. And that can be wonderful, but that can also be really, really difficult at the same time.
I think people are all cooped up, aren't they? They're cooped up, and like you say, around the dinner table and in a building, in a house together. And people do. I mean, I work with a lot of clients who have difficult relationships with their adult children. And,
yes.
And what happens is that as soon as we spend time in a situation like that with particularly with parents, is we go into child. We go into child, and our parents forget that we've grown up, and so you get all those dynamics repeating. And I think it's very much about being aware of that, and maybe even being able to have a conversation around that, if it's possible to do that with your family, maybe not at Christmas dinner table, but some other time before Christmas, and say, you know what, we always do this, and maybe we can just forgive each other a bit, and just take it that it is what it is. We can't help but go into those roles, but by becoming more aware of it, perhaps those roles won't get the better of us so much. We can laugh about it more.
Yeah, I mean, forgiveness at Christmas, that's a great That's a great pointer, isn't it? And it sounds really easy, but of course we know that those experiences are held on to. It's you know, the idea of forgiveness at Christmas is wonderful, and if they can do that, then that's absolutely fantastic. Let's have a think about forgiveness, actually, and what does that actually mean? Like, when we talk about, I don't know whether this is oversimplifying it by saying dysfunctional families. I mean, I think in my professional experience, there are quite a lot of dysfunctional families. And you talk about working with the adult children. So we know that this is something that goes on for years and years.
For a lifetime.
For a lifetime, right? So how would you expect, like, what would you say to a client or to anybody, you know, listening that kind of resonates with that? What would you say about forgiveness? Because forgiveness, do you see that means, I mean, having these conversations and talking about it, with forgiveness also comes accountability, right? So what happens if the other person isn't accountable for what has been?
Who do we forgive for? Who do we, you know, I always say that sometimes I find people struggle to forgive because they have this idea in their mind that it's condoning somebody's behavior. It's saying, oh, it was all right. And actually it wasn't all right, probably. But I think, you know, forgiveness is very much about us letting go of stuff that we've been holding on to that is hurting us. So it's not about saying, oh, it's okay that you did this, whatever it was, whether the person meant to do something or they didn't mean to do. It's not about saying it's okay. It's just saying, you know, I'm just going to put it down. You know, I'm just going to. And the thing I always say about forgiveness is it's so hard. It can be really hard. So what I don't know what you say with your clients, Pascale, but I always say, just begin to think about it. Maybe think about forgiving somebody 5%. Hang on to the 95% if you feel the need to, but just begin to think, what would it be like if I forgave this person? What would it be like if I just let this go because I'm bored of it now, and I just put it down and just, you know, just forgive them a little bit and just get into the energy of that. What are your thoughts on that, Pascale?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, whenever I have this conversation, there's always one client in particular that always comes back to my mind, because I remember just having like a couple of sessions around this and it being so hard, because her relationship with her mother was so abusive, so abusive. And so it really was very difficult, very difficult for her to let go of that. And rightly so, she has absolutely no relationship with her mother at all, with any of her family at all. But I think if we're not going to that extreme, because there aren't that, I mean, you know, in my social work days, obviously I would be having these conversations quite often, maybe not around forgiveness, but, you know, dealing with that level of abuse. But in this lifetime, in this role that I'm in now, it's much more about kind of misunderstandings. We've got like critical parenting, and parents who themselves have never been understood as children. So we you know, we're both passionate about this, aren't we? How repeating roles and how these generational habits continue, these generational behaviors continue. But I think it's about acceptance. And I think I think what you've said is absolutely right. And I think it's about also, when you relieve yourself, when you forgive yourself, it's not about condoning. It's about accepting the person for who they are and understanding that you're not necessarily going to go back and change things, but actually making peace with maybe the lessons that they've taught you is too fluffy, but making peace with who they are and their experience, and actually what was going on for them at the time as well, and trying to see it more holistically, I suppose.
Yeah, looking at the bigger picture.
Looking at the bigger picture. Yeah.
I think also with Christmas, I'm big on acceptance. I think if we can find acceptance, then we can move forward. And that's not about accepting, again, it's not about condoning. Acceptance, for me, it's about saying, well, this is hard. I am going to this place at Christmas with this family member who is a pain in the bum. And it is hard. Instead of this sort of, oh, I wish they wouldn't behave like this, and what am I going to do? Because when we're doing all that, we're creating a kind of a resistance, and we're getting ourselves anxious before we even get there. But if we can say, it is hard, maybe I don't get on very well with this person, and it creates more of an ease to give you the energy to then deal with things that come up. I think that's my experience. As soon as we accept, we create space for change to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think, my mind is just kind of like racing a little bit there. So if we were going to give one piece of advice in this segment, it would be around, how would you phrase that? Like how would you excuse me, how would you word that to somebody who is feeling anxious, who is feeling angry, who is feeling, whatever they're feeling, and winding themselves up, not in a, I don't mean that in a nasty way, but winding themselves up around like, oh gosh, I've got to go and do this now. How am I going to do it?
That winding up, it's like the runaway thoughts, isn't it? It's like,
absolutely.
I think, well, first of all, do you have to go to this person's place for Christmas? Have they got a chain and they've chained you up and dragging you into the house and chaining you up to the radiator? Or are you going because you feel obliged, you're trying to do the right thing, it's to please other family members, all of that. And if that's the case, then that you are choosing to do that. So that it's empowering to know that you are making that decision. Nobody's forcing you. So that's one thing. But also, as I say, just, accept the fact that not every relationship is perfect all the time. And just not every situation. I think sometimes people have had difficult Christmases with a family member, and then they hook into that, oh, it's Christmas, and, Uncle Fred will be there, and he always argues with me, or whatever it is. And so we associate this is going to happen again. And actually, how do we know? How do we know that's going to happen again?
Yeah, so it's almost like the self-fulfilling prophecy going on there, where you're subconsciously maybe like willing it to happen, or encouraging it to happen by the narrative that's running through your head at the time. Actually just sit at the other end of the table from Uncle Fred and just avoid him if as much as you can.
And just accept this, it is what it is. And by having that acceptance, I think that you feel a lot calmer, because you say, okay, so Uncle Fred may be a pain, so how will I handle that? I'll sit at the other end of the table. If he does his criticism or whatever it is, it's often about family members saying something that either is a criticism or is received as a criticism. Isn't it? How will I handle that? What will I say to myself? Will I take that on board? Will I relate it to what the person said 3 Christmases ago? Will I smile and nod and imagine it going past me? People do all sorts of different things to help themselves. They visualize a light around them, so that then it's whatever the insult can't get through. There's all sorts of different things we can do. And then, of course, there's other ways of dealing with that, by go in and give Uncle Fred a great big hug and say it's lovely to see you again, and wrong foot him. We have the choice. We have the choice of how we react and how we respond to people. And it's about accepting first that the situation is difficult, rather than wishing it wasn't. Because when we wish it wasn't, we put all our energy into that, and we take away our own power.
And coming back to where we started at the beginning of the conversation about family roles, you don't like, if you are a grown adult, like poor Uncle Fred's getting a bit of a battering today,
He
but
is
like,
a bit.
but,
Sorry to anybody called Fred out there who's listening to
but like Uncle Fred doesn't have to be Uncle Fred, right? If you're a grown adult and maybe you're a parent yourself, then actually Uncle Fred is your equal, actually, in that instance. And so you don't have to put yourself back into that's a really interesting thing. And that's why I find this conversation particularly so interesting, because like we can be grown up, we can be married, we can be, you know, have good jobs, have our own children, you know, have walked the path many a time, and yet we still see Uncle Fred as Uncle Fred, right? And it doesn't have to be like that. We can actually be an equal in that situation. I mean, you know, respectfully, we're all adults. So,
you know, I always say, when you're going into a difficult conversation, and I guess that's the Christmas scenario, but any difficult conversation, I always say, make an intention in your heart and your head to enter that conversation with kindness and respect for the other person. Just have that intention. I will have kindness and I will have respect for myself and for the other person in this situation. And you know, people get confused about having to make other people happy or taking responsibility. We don't have to take responsibility for other people's happiness or their reactions, but we do have a kind of duty to have manners.
Yes, absolutely. And case in point, really, because so you, generally speaking, work with adult children. And my client base tends to be younger, is younger. So I work with people, ladies more in their kind of like 40s with younger children. And one thing that resonates so much with me, and I feel so passionately about, is about the messages that I am sending my children and what they are learning.
Because you have young children.
Yeah, so mine are 7 and 9. And throughout everything that I do, I try to be as mindful as possible. Obviously, I don't get it right all the time because I'm human and flawed, but I try as much as possible to make sure that they are seeing a good example of relationships and communication and emotional resilience and emotional intelligence, and you know, all of the things that we feel so passionately about. And so therefore, in order to do that, it is about making sure that even if it's hard, as best as we can, we are setting a good example for them.
Yes.
And that, you know, they're a great shield for me, like, because they keep me they keep me on the right path. I mean, not to say that I'm, you know, I mean, I was very wayward in my younger years. I was an absolute like mess for quite emotional wreck for quite a lot of it. And you know, and drinking too much also comes into this situation as
Christmas,
well.
yeah.
Christmas drinking, you know, people like start drinking earlier in the day, you know, because hey, it's Christmas. And actually our emotional resilience becomes so much lower if we have been drinking for a period of time running up to Christmas as well. So these are all the factors that I'm very, very aware of, you know, for everybody else. But, you know, I'm not going to be a hypocrite for myself as well. And so if we're going to be mindful of our tongue, then we need to be mindful also about how much alcohol is getting consumed and how that then alters the dynamics too.
Yeah, it's personal responsibility, isn't it? Because actually what I'm hearing you say is it is your Christmas. You know, for each one of us, it's our Christmas. We have a responsibility for making our Christmas the best it can be, rather than handing that over to Uncle Fred or whoever to create our Christmas for us, or the bottle of sherry or wine or whatever it is people are drinking, beer or whatever, giving that responsibility. We can take responsibility for making our Christmas the best day it can be within a situation. with family members or something, if it is. I mean, I'm sure there are many people who go and have a lovely Christmas with their family members, but if you're going into the situation and you're thinking, oh dear gosh, you know, all this is going on, it's helpful to take a breath and step back and say, yeah, but I'm in control of my life. I'm in control of my drinking, as you say. I'm in control of my reactions to other people. I'm in control of my moods. I'm in control of what comes out of my mouth. I'm in control of the fact that I can respect myself and other people, be kind to myself and other people today. That's my intention. And I find intentions, I'm really big on intention recently, Pascale. Make an intention. Just make, and all you have to do is just make that decision. That's all it is, make a decision. That goes into the subconscious and it's prepped and primed then, so that if something comes up in a conversation, your subconscious kind of subconsciously says, oh, don't forget the respect, don't forget the kindness.
Yeah, absolutely. And make the intention about that forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know, because that is intentional as well.
Yeah. I was talking to a group that I run a little group, and we were talking the other day about how actually forgiveness, and we were saying, it kind of gets a bit boring as time goes on, holding on to stuff all the time. You get to a point where you just get bored, just put it down.
Yeah.
Just let it go. Just because it's only you that's getting angsty about this. The other person probably doesn't even know that they need forgiving.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, which feels very relevant as well, and maybe for the last few minutes we can kind of have a look at that as well. It's about being aware that we are all grown-ups, and actually we don't have to do the things that we don't want to do. I'm sure we have all, to some degree, or maybe not all, but I'm sure a lot of people listening have got examples of where they just decided to step out of the drama. This drama is not going to, this drama will keep going all of the time I am in it. And so therefore we actually do have a choice to step out if we choose to do so.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important reminder, because with Christmas often comes this cloud of obligation. Like I have to do it. If I don't do it, what are the repercussions if I don't do it? What are the repercussions if I step out? But actually, if it is that fraught and it fills you with that much anxiety or worry or angst or anger or whatever the emotion, you actually have a choice to not do it. You have a choice to not be a part of that chaos anymore.
I can almost hear people watching this saying, yeah, but if I don't go to, Uncle Fred's for Christmas, I'm going to have 6 months worth of people going, oh, you rejected us. And what are your thoughts on that, Pascale?
Well, obviously, every family situation is different, right? So that there is no one answer for this. But in all honesty, my gut says to me, you step out of the drama, and then you have 6 months of the fallout, right? If it's that bad, you have 6 months of fallout. But then actually, once you've done it, you have thereby set the tone for all of your future Christmases, and you get to then be in control. And I don't mean that in a manipulative, coercive way. I mean, you get to be control of you and your family. And so maybe it will sting the first time. The reality is that maybe it will. Okay, maybe it won't, actually. Sometimes the drama that we create in our head is much more aggressive than the reality. But if it does play out negatively, then it will only, you only need to do that once to set the tone then for how we go on thereafter.
Yeah, I love that. And it's that what if, you know, the what ifs can seem huge in your head. I know I've had situations in my life where I've stepped out of my comfort zone, and I've been, as you know, I write books about being assertive, so that's my thing. And I've done that, and I've imagined some huge drama was going to play out, and people said, "Oh, all right then."
Yeah.
And I thought, gosh, all those months of worrying about that, and you know, but actually, as you say, also, you know, if you do get the 6 months of fallout, well, I always say people's feathers are going to be ruffled if you're going to step out of your comfort zone. You're going to be uncomfortable. By very definition, if you're not in the comfort zone, you're going to be uncomfortable. But the question we have to ask ourselves is it really so comfortable in the comfort zone, really? And quite often the answer to that is, I've had enough now.
Yeah.
I'm ready to, it's actually going to be less difficult to actually go through this, people's feathers being ruffled and being upset, so that I can grow as a person and reclaim my life and my Christmases.
Yeah,
and actually
absolutely.
maybe by stepping into that role next Christmas, you might feel that you feel happier to spend time with those people because you feel more confident in yourself anyway. So
yeah. And Christmas, you know, these days I think Christmas can be, we can do Christmas differently.
yeah,
like Christmas doesn't have to be 15 people sitting around a dinner table arguing about, you know, Brussels sprouts and like politics, and like we don't actually have to do, I mean, I've done all sorts of Christmases, like in all forms, because I've, you know, my parents split when I was quite young, so you know, we've had a lot of deaths at Christmas, so we've, you know, Christmas is a difficult time, and I think Christmas, when you are a child of divorce, is very difficult. You've got, you know, the emotional kind of like one of your parents is always on their own, even if they're with friends, so you've got that kind of emotional stuff. And of course, as adults, you know, that doesn't change if you've still got your parents. And so I think, you know, we get to set the tone ourselves of how we want it to be. And I think there is something really nice about having actually a flexibility to Christmas, and that it doesn't actually always have to be like this. We can do Christmas in our own way as a nuclear family and as an extended family, and that is okay. And maybe you will be the change setter, is that the right term? Maybe you will be the person that starts that ball rolling. But actually, Christmas to me isn't about Christmas Day. Christmas is about, well, now as an adult, you know, seeing my children happy, and kind of like I actually don't, you know, I don't care much for Christmas Day, if I'm completely honest. But I like the season. I like that everybody's happier. I like that kind of rules get a little bit relaxed. You know, I like the merriment of Christmas far, far, far more than I've ever enjoyed Christmas Day. So we can be creative, I think we can be creative. I think we get to, you know, ruffle feathers, but ruffling feathers not necessarily in a bad way, but like let's just like mix it up a little bit. Let's mix it up. I like mixing things up.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, for sure. And I think also, I think for people listening to this, I just like to end by saying, you know, you're okay. You're all right. Whatever you want to do and however you want to be, it's all okay. Just, you know, chill, relax, just, you know, be kind to yourself, accept situations, and just have a good time as best as you can.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, I think that's a perfect note to wrap up on, Marléne.
I do. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, Merry Christmas to everybody. Merry Christmas to you too, my love.
And you, darling. And you too. Won't be long and I'll be seeing you in person, and that will be great.
Can't wait. Fabulous.